Monday Night Raw starts off with the bloodline, starts off with the acknowledgement of Roman Reigns due to Jacob Fatu losing at Clash of Italy Tribal Combat. This was an overall fine segment. Starts off with Jacob acknowledging his loss, mentioning how he wanted to become world champion, ends up mentioning that he knew what he was getting himself into if he was to lose to Roman Reigns, mentioning losing in front of his family, but eventually he ends up acknowledging Roman Reigns. They end up throwing up the ones, and that's the end of the segment. I like what they did with this segment overall. Nothing too major really happened here with just Jacob Fatu acknowledging Roman Reigns. Very interested to see what they do with Jacob Fatu's character, how he will interact with the Bloodline character. We already see a little bit of animosity towards Jacob and Jey Uso. So interested to see how they really portray Jacob's character now with him being in the Bloodline. Very interested to see, will he take the more Solo Sikoa route, or are they going to keep his character the same with him just being more of a or are they going to like adjust it where he's more of a crash out type character, more still playing that enforcer role, but just more of a crash out. So very interested to see how they play this up. Very interested to see who's Roman Reigns' next opponent, because I don't know when SummerSlam is. I know Money in the Bank is after SummerSlam, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm very interested to see who's Roman's next opponent is before SummerSlam, if he even has an opponent before SummerSlam. I'm assuming he would. Very interested to see who Roman's next opponent is before SummerSlam, but who knows? They may end up stalling his next opponent until after the King of the Ring tournament. But nonetheless, very interested to see what's the dynamic of Jacob Fatu in this new iteration of the Bloodline. I would have loved that Jacob would have won, but I'm not mad at Roman Reigns retaining. Again, very interested to see how, because they could go multiple ways with this. They could easily tell the story of Roman potentially going back to his old ways, mistreating Jacob, and then eventually tell that story of Jacob betraying Roman. Or you could go a completely different route. Who knows? Maybe Jacob potentially, wants to dethrone Roman again, and then Jacob finally be able to overcome Roman. Who knows? Unlike the other Bloodline members. So who knows how they go with the storyline, but overall, I'm still interested to see where they go with this Bloodline storyline, because they could go multiple ways. But overall segment I thought was fine to start off the show. Afterwards, we end up getting the first King of the Ring tournament match between Carmelo Hayes, Penta, Obafemi, and Solo Sikoa. This was a great match. This was a really great match. Really enjoyed it. I don't really have too much to say here, but this is a very wild, chaotic, fast-paced match. It was one moment where you end up getting Solo Sikoa and Tala Tonga ends up double teaming Obafemi. They end up trying to take him out of the match. But eventually Obafemi ends up recovering, ends up making his comeback, and end up picking up the pinfall. I think he pinned Penta, but I could be wrong. He might have pinned Solo Sikoa, but it doesn't really matter. But Obafemi is up advancing. He advanced to the next round, who he potentially, most likely, it seems like he's going to face Braun Breaker, if I'm not mistaken. I forgot who's in the match with Braun Breaker, but I think Braun Breaker and Oba are in the same bracket, so it seems like that's most likely going to be his next opponent, but I could be wrong. But he ends up cutting a short promo afterwards, just acknowledging the loss that he took at Clash in Italy to Brock Lesnar, acknowledging that it took 7 F5s, and ends up mentioning that they're 1-1 and that it's not over yet, and he's coming back for his victory. So I'm not mad at all. I think people overreacted to Obafemi losing to Brock Lesnar. Now, to be fair, I have not watched Clash in Italy because I've been in the middle of moving. And everything that's been going wrong with me moving has been going wrong. So that I haven't really been able to watch as much wrestling. But based off the fact that I know he lost and it took 7 F5s, I think I understand why fans are mad at him losing, but at the end of the day, it took 7 F5s. If it takes that many F5s for a person to lose, they're protected in the loss. And plus, one loss does not bury you. You're going to be fine long as they continue the momentum of him potentially looking strong in the future. So he's fine overall. Decided to see if he potentially wins. I don't know if he wins, because I still think Seth Rollins is going to win this King of the Ring tournament. I just have a hard time believing, because if Obafemi goes to King of the Ring and wins, he has to win at SummerSlam. But I just have a hard time believing that WWE is just going to pull the trigger on Oba that fast. I just have a hard time believing in it. But we'll see eventually where this goes. But I wouldn't be mad at Oba one at all. He's the one I want to win. But I do think Seth Rollins is going to be the one winning here, with probably Brock Lesnar costing him in the semifinals, probably against Braun Breaker. But we'll see eventually how that all unfolds. But nonetheless, this was a really great match. We do end up getting a tag team match between Rey Mysterio, Dragon Lee versus Ethan Page and Rusev. This is the continuation of the story due to last week, due to, I forgot exactly how it started off. It was them attacking Penta, and then Rey came out, Dragon Lee came out, helped, and this ends up becoming a tag team. Rey Mysterio and Dragon Lee do end up picking the victory. This was a really good match. It is confirmed that Rey Mysterio is going to get an Intercontinental Championship match against Penta next week, I'm assuming. So very excited for that. That should be a really great match. I hope eventually Rusev, Ethan, Dragon Lee, and Ray are still going to be in the Intercontinental Championship picture. I think that's the best thing for them right now. So I hope they all still revolve around the Intercontinental Championship picture, continue to just have matches intertwined with each other, constantly having their stories intertwined with each other, eventually going after Penta as their main goal. So we'll see how that match plays out next week with Rey Mysterio and Penta. I don't think it's going to be any interference. I don't think it should be, but it wouldn't shock me if they end up having some interferences where Ethan Page, Rusev gets angry at the fact that they lost, so they want some revenge. So it wouldn't shock me if they went that route, but I think it should be a clean finish overall. But this was an overall good match, and we'll see how that match plays out when Ray and Penta eventually face each other for the Intercontinental Championship. Afterwards, we end up getting the first match of the Queen of the Ring tournament between Roxanne Perez, Julia, Io Sky, and Lash Legend. This was also a really good match, really enjoyed it. We end up getting Io Sky does end up picking up the victory, which wasn't a really shock to me. It seemed kind of obvious. Julia ended up getting great reactions. Now, to be fair, she is Italian. It was in Italy, so but hopefully that is the start of her getting better reactions because, that's how it was for Carmelo. Carmelo needed that one show in his hometown in Boston, and then from then on, people start chanting Melo. So hopefully this could be the start, but we got to see how eventually those reactions change when we get back to the States. But nonetheless, Io Sky picks up the victory. Io Sky is the one I'm assuming will win. She's the only person I could see really winning this tournament outside of maybe Becky Lynch, but that's kind of a reach because the only way I can see Becky winning, because if Becky wins, I'm assuming she would go after Rhea, but I don't even think that's how that works. I think it goes based off whoever brand you're on, but even that's confusing because Roman Reigns told Jey Uso to go after Cody's title, but typically they do it based on whatever brand you're on. If you're on Raw and you win, you typically go after the Raw champion, not... I don't know how they're doing it this year. It's a bit confusing, but nonetheless, I'm assuming Io will win so she can face Liv Morgan. That would be her opponent at SummerSlam. That's the only person I can see winning unless it is Becky Lynch to go after Rhea Ripley, but I just don't see them doing that, especially because you have Jade, Charlotte Flair, JCJ. Rhea has opponents up until SummerSlam. Liv Morgan has nobody, so you kind of got to solidify that. So this was a good match overall. There was a backstage segment where Roxanne Perez was frustrated. Liv Morgan she was kind of cheering her up, but she kind of shoved her aside, basically gloating that she's going to be the one winning it and all that. So little Judgment Day drama, but it didn't really lead to nothing. So we'll see eventually where that goes. But Io Sky ends up picking up the victory, so I'm assuming she will be the one winning the whole thing. But we'll see eventually how this all unfolds. Now for the main event, Seth Rollins versus Braun Breaker. This was a great match. This was a great way to end the show. Very shockingly that it ended on a match. Because typically WWE, I can't remember the last time a match ended Raw or SmackDown. It's very rare when a match ends a show. But this was a great match from start to finish. We end up getting some really cool spots. We end up getting a spot where Braun Breaker goes for a spear on the announce table, only to get reversed into a pedigree, which I thought was dope. We end up getting some shenanigans from the Vision where Austin Theory interferes. Montez Ford comes out, attacks Austin Theory, takes him out of the equation. Before he ended up taking him out, if I'm not mistaken, I think Austin Theory hits Seth Rollins with with his tag team championship belt, only for Braun Breaker to use that as the advantage to hit a spear. Seth Rollins eventually kicks out. Towards the end of the match, we end up getting Paul Heyman. He ends up interfering in the match. He ends up not distracting her. He ends up pulling Braun Breaker's leg onto the ropes to cause a rope break. The referee didn't see it. Seth Rollins ends up confronting Paul Heyman. He ends up just talking. They're going back and forth. Braun Breaker is charging up for the spear, but he ends up accidentally spearing Paul Heyman. Then Seth Rollins ends up getting the tag team championship belt. Braun Breaker goes back in the ring, goes for the spear, but he ends up spearing into the tag team championship belt. This allows Seth Rollins to take advantage, hits the curb stomp, and picks up the victory. I like this. I like the way they ended the show. Both guys looked incredibly strong in this match, a really good back and forth. I'm assuming this is probably going to be our finals matchup of the King of the Ring tournament. That's why I'm assuming it's going to be, because I think it's going to be Braun advancing, and then I think Seth is going to advance, and they're both going to be in the finals, and this is going to be the match at the whatever. I remember them doing the finals at a PLE. I think it was Crown Jewel, if I'm not mistaken, or it was called King of the Ring when they did the tournament. I remember before, but I don't know if they're going to do that again, where they're going to have the finals in a particular PLE. But nonetheless, I'm assuming this is probably going to be the finals matchup for the King of the Ring tournament, which I'm very excited about. That could go either way. You could have Braun potentially win it, him go to SummerSlam, or you go Seth Rollins winning it, potentially facing Roman Reigns, which I do think is the route they're going, because I'm assuming that they want that Roman and Seth match eventually, whether it's at Mania or whether it's at a SummerSlam. So I could easily see them going that route. But nonetheless, this is a great way to end Monday Night Raw. Overall show I thought was good. This was a good overall show. I wouldn't say great. It was great matches, but in terms of story, no stories really progressed. It was overall just a really good wrestling match. Now a lot of it was due to the King and Queen of the Ring matches, so that kind of is a story in itself. Who's going to advance to SummerSlam? So that's kind of a story in itself. But great matches overall. You guys let me know your overall thoughts and opinions down below. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Make sure you hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of my content. But yeah, that's it.